My parents made me and my sisters match everything: clothes, hairs, even our bodies. They trapped us for surgery, but we were saved at the gate. Parents wanted my brothers and myself to look alike. I had no idea how far they'd go. I was 7 and my younger sister was 3 when my parents made us match. Despite our different ages and stature, we had the identical weight, ruler-measured haircuts, and clothing. In line every morning, while Mom measured our hair. If it was even slightly longer, she chopped it immediately. Puberty made matching risky. Mom left gym class after wrapping her chest in ace bandages for our premature sister Iris. Mom gave everyone matching padded bras. Scabs resulted from our 3-week hair dye chemicals burning our scalps. Harlow kept his voice high and ours deepened. She practiced speaking lower till she lost her voice for a month. Teachers couldn't tell us apart and we couldn't correct them. I wanted to play soccer, but Iris hated sports, so we all did. We were different since Harlow was superb at violin but quit because we were bad. I started my period at 12 and hid it for 3 years until Iris did. Toilet paper wadding because pads showed uneven growth. I regret bleeding through my clothes in class while pretending nothing was wrong. Because they do, our bodies change. Dad had Beatrice stoop until her spine cracked when she grew 6 inches one summer. Although Harlow was petite, her shoes had huge lifts that inflated her ankles. Then we changed faces. Iris' nose enlarged. Beatrice had robust cheeks. She had rounder eyes than us. Parents used face exercises and bone reshaping masks. Trying to flee at 17. I reached the bus terminal before they caught me. Next, they installed outside-only locks on our bedroom doors. We had to check in every hour and every room had cameras. If we went to the bathroom too long, Mom would bang on the door and rant about secret individuality. Homeschooling prevented us from being influenced to be different. Sameness made me forget where I ended and my sisters began. A doctor who lost his American license yet worked in Mexico was found. We were measured like animals as he discussed repairs. He'd reduce Beatrice's cheekbones, widen Harlow's nose, narrow Iris's, and pin back my ears to match them. He even matched our lips and hairlines. Parents paid $25,000 up front and booked everything 3 weeks after my 17th birthday. Iris attempted suicide by swallowing a bottle of sleeping pills a week before we departed for Mexico. She survived, but the hospital questioned her years-long binding chest scars. Our parents lied about her body image difficulties causing self-harm. They said we needed surgery to be happy. Our procedure was moved forward 4 days before social workers could investigate. Dad scolded us about Iris's selfishness as perfection feared while Mom packed. Everyone knew we were going to a special camp. Airport van arrived at 5 a.m. They gave us sleeping pills that night to stop fleeing. I pretended to swallow but spat mine out as Mom looked away. I stayed awake listening to my sister's breathing because surgery was in 13 hours. Mom disclosed the ultimate plan, eliminating ribs to fit our torsos and permanently altering our vocal cords to match our vocals. The car came around 4:45 a.m. They carried my sedated sisters out one by one as I pretended to sleep. I lay limp as Dad lifted me to rush outdoors. I believed he'd notice my loud heartbeat. I felt a sharp pain in my neck when he reached the van. Mom held a syringe, smiling. As my eyesight faded, she asked, "Did you really think we'd trust the pills alone? We've been planning this for years." The pills hit quickly and made me limp as they piled me in with my sisters. I last saw the airport sign as we entered the highway. If the drugs didn't knock me out, we wouldn't wake up from those surgeries. My body went slack as Mom requested, but my intellect stayed awake to understand. I barely saw the dashboard lights and gloomy road ahead through my almost closed eyes. Mom practiced telling airport staff we were going to a unique Mexican arts camp in the passenger seat. Dad corrected her twice about where we were flying into, and she yelled at him to get it right since one mistake might ruin everything. My sisters breathed slowly and heavily beside me. Medication knocked them out. The car smelled like Mom's vanilla air freshener and 3 days of hair dye. Counting exit signs helped me focus and avoid drugs. Leave 8, 10, 12. My heart was racing, and I feared the quiet van would hear it. Dad entered the airport exit ramp and our headlights illuminated the huge blue airplane sign. The end. This occurred unless the airport found 4 unconscious adolescent girls. Dad joined early morning travelers in the departure drop-off line unloading baggage. I almost shivered when he opened the vehicle sliding door, but I didn't move. A luggage trolley from the rack was rolled over. I lolled as he took me out and put me on the metal cart with his hands under my arms. He loaded Iris, Harlow, and Beatrice beside me. Mom zipped my pink hoodie and straightened Beatrice's hair. She tugged on Harlow's sleeve to match the others, complaining about how we had to look pretty now. People with rolling bags passed by as I barely opened my eyes. Long, a perplexed businesswoman stared at us. A father with 2 children carried his luggage to the terminal door after staring. Nobody stopped. No one asked. They disregarded us like we were awkward. Mom pushed the trolley through the terminal's automatic doors, and fluorescent light sliced my closed eyelids. The intense light made my eyes swim, but I couldn't blink. I heard announcements from high ceilings. Security and unattended luggage. Cart wheels creaked on the smooth floor. Dad carried our 4 passports and Mexico documentation folder. Each cart push made my head bounce, so I had to stay slack and breathe regularly. The terminal was mostly empty this morning. Not many fatigued travelers. An unopened coffee shop and a gift shop with a metal fence were there. Bright overhead lights hurt my eyes. Mom clicked her shoes quickly, showing anxiousness. She sped the cart to the terminal's international check-in. The airline agent looked up from her computer as we approached. She was apparent through my eyelashes. Young woman with bun, possibly 30-year-old. She stared at her screen, us, and back. She tilted her head and raised her eyebrows. Her frown intensified as she typed. The supervisor vest-wearing agent arrived in a minute after she called. We watched as they quietly talked and the supervisor pointed to a computer screen. Agent 1 nodded and pointed to the trolley. Some hope flared in my chest. Someone noticed. Someone saw 4 identical teenage girls were still. I saw the supervisor ask my dad as she approached us. I found my chance. Even though the drugs obscured my eyesight, I focused. The agent bent to check our breathing. I saw her face centimeters away. I found my strength to cry. I felt the steady roll at my jaw. Jumping back, she grabbed the phone on the counter, terrified. To the supervisor, she pointed at my face and screamed something terrible. The supervisor grabbed the phone as her countenance changed. Mom spoke gently, but the agents ignored her. They called and looked at us with concern and alarm, not simply confusion. 4 minutes later, an airport policeman arrived fast with his belt. He was tall and ebony with kind eyes that looked at us before my parents. Williams took out a small notebook, his name tag read. He asked my parents why 4 teens were unconscious at 5 a.m. The practice story began with Dad's steady voice. Traveling made us nervous as nervous flyers. He said Mom gave us resting pills for travel. His charming smile with teachers and doctors usually made people trust him and stop asking inquiries. Mom provided more details, sounding like the best mother, worried and loving. She mentioned our Mexico arts camp. She said we were ecstatic and sleepless for days. She said she gave us something moderate and safe to rest for the long trip. To calm them, she discussed responsible parenting and their best interests. She sounded like hospital staff. Iris' voice, which worked on everyone, made her sound like a loving parent who wanted to save her daughters when she tried to die. I faced Officer Williams crouched close to the cart. He gently took my hand, his warm skin against my cold fingers. He whispered, but I heard him. If I could hear, pinch his thumb. I summoned my drugged strength. I focused on my hand. It wasn't hard to squeeze because Mom injected something in my neck. His body froze. Looked at me and tightened his grip on my hand. Sensed it. He noticed I was awake. He realized the situation was dire. William stood immediately and removed his belt radio. He called the EMS immediately but politely. My parents were told no plane would board unless medical staff cleared us. Within 3 minutes, 2 paramedics arrived with gear. They tested my iris and pulse. First paramedic pulled my eyelid and lighted my eye, then Harlow. He informed his friend our students are too few. A second paramedic's stethoscope showed our breathing was too shallow for sleep. They gazed at each other and Officer Williams in disdain. Mom's voice hardened. She claimed we were okay and would miss our flight. She said they exaggerated. She kept discussing the camp, our tardiness, and its pointlessness. Dad put his hand on her arm to calm her, but I could see their perfect parenting crumbling as terror set in. Now Mom's lovely voice was harsh. Dad smiled tensely. As paramedics evaluated us and talked to Officer Williams, I could tell our parents were losing control for the first time in years. The first paramedic checked my pulse again and felt my neck where Mom had inserted the needle. He froze, then carefully tilted my head to look well. His companion instantly arrived and looked at the tiny red mark on my skin with blood. The first paramedic radioed his supervisor as the second checked Iris. He found her neck mark in the same area. He found Beatrice after Harlow. All four of us had fresh, red injection sites. Radio buzzed with supervisor's specific request. The first paramedic mentioned many minors on coerced sedation and possibly non-voluntary medicine. He told Officer Williams, "This didn't look like anxiety medication given by a parent. This looked like someone deliberately drugging kids who didn't want to be drugged." Williams scrawled in his notebook and his jaw tensed. He asked Dad to verify our IDs with him near the check-in counter. Dad was astonished but followed Williams a few steps away, while another officer approached Mom. Williams asked Dad about our vacation in his journal. "We went where in Mexico? City, which? How was the institution named?" Dad replied quickly that we were going to Tijuana camp. Williams took notes, then asked Mom the same questions. "Our unique initiative was in Mexilay," she remarked. Williams arched an eyebrow at his notebook with both answers. Mom affirmed Mexilay when asked again. "Definitely Mexilay." He displayed her dad's remarks, turning her pallid. She said they were correct immediately. The program was in both locations. Which facility to start at was unclear. Williams kept writing, but his look showed he didn't trust her. He brought an evidence camera from his belt to me on the cart. He took many photos of my neck injection mark from different angles, flashing through my closed eyelids. He took photos of my sister's marks. Left in spoken code I didn't understand on his radio. 2 times I heard trafficking and suspected abuse. Hearing it made Mom cry immediately. These weren't sad or scared tears. She said they were ridiculous with a tight voice and anger. We traveled as a family. Dare they suggest something so awful? Though crying, her eyes were angry. A gray pantsuit-clad woman ran toward us across the terminal, a badge on her waist and a phone in her ear. She terminated her call and introduced herself to Williams as Natalie Harris from CPS on call. She said she received our case notification and needs to urgently alert him. Iris Hospital report from 3 weeks earlier was open. The hospital planned to investigate Iris' chest injuries from binding materials, but our parents rushed her out before the social worker finished. Natalie said a worker was trying to arrange a house visit, but we were leaving the country at the airport. Williams showed her our injection mark photos and parent city names. Natalie looked at my dad and Williams after viewing the photographs. Airline supervisors denied our boarding. Medical clearance from the airport medical staff and CPS is required before flight. Williams and Natalie encouraged our parents to follow them to the airport medical center. Dad immediately defended our rights and stated they couldn't take us. Williams kept walking and signaled paramedics to bring us as Mom screamed and said they were persecuted for their parenting. Parents had to keep up or fall behind. While halfway across the terminal, Dad grabbed Mom's arm and turned toward the parking garage. Williams was fast to impede their path. He stated that they would be imprisoned instantly if they left with us or interfered with medical evaluation. Dad screamed about unjust detention and illegal captivity as he turned red. Williams was surrounded by 2 other officers. Dad ceased yelling and closed his mouth. Mom didn't leave after sobbing. The airport clinic was small and bright with white walls and chemical smells. A blue scrubs nurse greeted us at the door and told paramedics to move us into curtained areas. Olivia Bennett, in blue scrubs and a forensic nursing badge, entered. Her first step was closing my test curtain. Asking if I could hear her, she murmured her intention. First, she checked my vitals, then carefully lifted my shirt to examine my torso. Her hand halted when she saw my chest scars. Iris binding materials left long red marks on my skin. Mom had me match Olivia, who was silent but sad. To inspect my scalp, she gently parted my hair and lowered my shirt. She discovered rough, scarred skin and chemical burns from years of hair dyeing. She thoroughly photographed each injury with a medical camera. Heard her examine one of my sisters in the next curtain space. Through my curtain, Natalie Harris entered. She sat facing me in a chair near the exam table. She quietly announced emergency protective custody. This meant no journey home with our parents today. We'd be safe while investigation. It shook me to see relief. My control slipped. Even though it was hot, I was shaking like I was freezing. Olivia gently draped a warm shawl over my shoulders. Mom spoke to Natalie warmly and worriedly under the veil. She recounted how she sacrificed everything to help us succeed. Natalie spoke calmly and professionally. She said medical proof sufficed. Injection marks, binding scars, chemical burns, and custody were non-negotiable. Natalie's tone didn't change as Mom's voice grew urgent. 2 wheelchair-driving nurses prepped us for comprehensive checks at the main hospital. We were wheeled out one by one. I was hospitalized alone. I was alone without my sisters after the door closed. It was my first solitary room since age 7. Space felt huge, empty, and wrong. I heard a loud stillness. I almost yelled their names to prove their proximity. I recognized that our estrangement and loneliness could save us. I stayed quiet and cleared my surroundings. A soft tap woke me, and Elena entered with a big black camera and flash. She requested photos of my injuries for court, and I agreed because proof was my only weapon. She tenderly separated my hair to photograph the rough spots where years of chemical dye had burned and deformed my scalp. She carefully documented each damaged spot with the same attention as the original checkup as the camera shown. She asked me to lift my top and photograph the red marks across my ribs, where the binding materials had ripped my skin raw, even though I didn't require binding. Each flash felt like freezing the evidence, making it permanent, which scared and moved me. Olivia then photographed my arms, revealing Dad's carry to the van bruises and my neck's purple injection site. After finishing, she silently thanked me and said these images will protect us. Natalie arrived shortly after Olivia left, moved the chair closer to my bed, and asked if I was ready to talk. My medication blurred and hindered my words as I recounted the surgical plans and Mexican doctor. I tried to explain the rib removal and vocal cord changes, but my sentences broke. Natalie gently stroked my hand and suggested we talk once the medications wore off. Though I couldn't speak, she sat there as I battled the fog. Mom outside my door demanded to see me and claimed she had a right to interviews. Dad's gruff voice joined hers, and my chest clenched with ancient fear. I heard a calm masculine voice say only authorized workers may enter patient rooms, so hospital security barred the door. Dad yelled about parental rights and illegal detention. His voice reached that terrifying peak that used to chill us. The security man's steady voice convinced me he wasn't afraid of Dad. Natalie stared at the door and then at me, wondering if the guard calmed me. Dad's wrath through the door made me want to hide under the bed, but I nodded. 20 minutes later, Williams entered my doorway and nodded to the security guard before talking to Natalie. He said he had warrants to search our house for bedroom door locks, surveillance cameras, and other evidence of our parents' plans. Our injection-marked photographs and Mexico information convinced the court in just an hour. When Natalie asked about the timing, Williams stated his team was executing the search warrant and acquiring cameras, locks, and Mom's measurement logs. Knowing others were searching our house and documenting our parents' control made me guilty and relieved. A nurse ran by my door shouting a psychiatric emergency code. Knowing the code was for Iris's room, and that she'd tried to die before, my heart stopped because we were apart and she was alone with her horror. Natalie softly patted my shoulder and told me to be still because Iris had a skilled team. I shook all over when I lay down. Worried Iris had fled again. None caught it in time this time. Natalie left to investigate, leaving me with people running down the corridor and my monitors ringing. Olivia returned 30 minutes later, pale and anxious, sitting heavily in my bedside chair. She carefully detailed the Mexican doctor's procedures for us in medical textbook terminology. Reduce our cheekbones to Beatrice's. Remove ribs to fit torso. Voice cord modification alters pitch and tone to sound alike. She listed medical names and risks for each surgery. Hearing it described as a surgery plan made me queasy. Olivia said Iris was stable since it was a panic attack, but they were transporting her to a safer institution for monitoring. Natalie sat down and showed me Mom and Mexican clinic email printouts from a folder. Her digital forensics team seized our parents' phones with a warrant. The emails included Mom's handwritten notes on which qualities needed to be modified for perfect matching and detailed measurements of our faces and bodies. My nose breadth, ear angle, and jaw form needed adjustment. We received photos of our faces from different angles with lines showing where the doctor would cut. I told Natalie the clinic name, Mom organized the vacation and I noticed it on home paperwork. Her international medical licenses and cross-border patient safety calls were urgent. Her voice was urgent and professional. She held my hand and said I protected other youngsters who might have been sent there. Flag and investigate the clinic. It seemed heavy to know other families would try what our parents did. Natalie informed that Hannah Ainsworth, our guardian ad litem, will represent us at a temporary custody court this afternoon. Natalie said a guardian ad litem's sole purpose was to tell the judge of our needs. She said Hannah would likely consult me before the hearing. I was bewildered by new people, procedures, and legal lingo, but at least they asked what we needed instead of deciding like our parents. I lay there, analyzing everything until the ceiling air vent made a faint sound. A name-mimic whisper. Focusing on my breath, I heard it again. Harlow's injured but familiar voice, whispering my name through ventilation. We spoke through the vents to hear each other. We tapped basic patterns on the wall between our rooms instead of chatting. 2 taps for I'm scared. 3 for I'm here. And 4 for I love you. Tapped back and forth. This simple communication seemed like a connection even though we were in different rooms for the first time in 12 years. Our nurse knocked and brought a plastic bag with my name. After Dad was separated from us at the airport, she gave me my phone, saying they took it from his luggage. I saw 17 missed mom calls and 3 voicemails when I turned it on. Dad's phone sent recently. I pushed play and heard his angry voice accusing me of being ungrateful and dividing the family as they tried to make us special. We could have been great together, he thought. I spent it by generating airport trouble. A hot, biting fist from guilt made me sick. However, I touched the injection mark on my neck, still unpleasant and slightly swollen, and considered rib removal and voice cord alteration surgery. Faster cooling accentuated guilt. No effort was made to distinguish us. They attempted to make us alike, but they're different. Natalie returned hours later with a spiral notepad and pen. She sat next to my bed and urged me to write down what happened in my own words for my own record that no one else could see unless I wanted them to. She said it might help me remember and process. My journaling began the morning they told us about Mexico. I kept writing we and us like one person instead of 4. We feared. Going didn't suit us. Hiding. Looking over the words, I wasn't sure where I ended and my sisters started. Natalie noticed my stare and asked what was wrong. I gave her the page, and she nodded slowly and suggested I add my name. I initially felt awkward claiming experiences as my own. Forced myself. I feared. Refused departure. Hiding. The first time I read my experience separately clenched but lightened my chest. Natalie returned that evening, concerned and with her phone. She handed me a local news website with a brief airport kid endangerment report. Despite our anonymity, the news indicated that 4 children were taken into protective custody after suspicious circumstances at the international terminal. We might be discovered, and I was afraid. The neighbors knew we were traveling. Our old schoolmates may remember us. What if others told the story and related it to our family? Natalie likely sensed my concern since she sat down and explained that juvenile cases are sealed by law. No news outlet can identify us. She continuously assured me of our safety. I couldn't shake my worry. Natalie talked to people about foster placements through the door for hours while on the phone. 4 teenage girls are too much for most houses. Some held 2, others 3. No one could fit 4 of us. I hated thinking of being apart after everything. We had to match for 12 years. We may truly split now that we've been apart. Independence without losing sisters was my goal. Natalie came to my room later and said she was still looking for a placement to keep us together, but she looked discouraged. Williams and his staff executed our house search warrant the next morning. Natalie showed me photos. As they photographed each room, they emailed her. Our bedroom doors had outside-only locks, so we couldn't leave at night. Every room, even the bathroom, had cameras streaming to monitors in our parents' bedroom to monitor us 24/7. Years ago, Mom's meticulous files chronicled our millimeter-measured hair and who required cutting. Ace bandages she tied to Iris's chest and padded bras she made us wear were recovered. To help the Mexican doctor arrange surgery, my mom sent him a notebook with our regular school class timetables. Williams and his colleagues photographed and bagged evidence. Natalie claimed their findings showed it wasn't tight parenting, which assisted the case. Control was deliberate. As Williams investigated the house, Other investigators interviewed our neighbors door to door. Natalie read me their statements from copies. Our neighbors reported we were always together outside. One neighbor said we always dressed and marched like soldiers. Another claimed we never played with neighbors. I was angry when the woman 3 doors down shouted it. She told the investigator she appreciated our synchronized swimming team-like coordination. Cute made me shout. No one questioned Cute's control. Nobody wondered if 4 teenage girls moving in unison was a problem. They proceeded their day thinking it was cute and different. I met Hannah Ainsworth afternoon. She was likely in her 50 seconds, with pushed back gray hair and direct eyes that wanted to hear me. As my guardian ad litem, she said she would decide what was best for me and my sisters, and notify the judge. She dragged a chair to my bed and requested again. She asked me what I wanted, not what I thought I should say, or appease grown-ups. After considerable thought, I replied. I asked her to protect me and my sisters. Stopping my parents was more crucial than punishing them. I wanted them to recognize their mistake, but how? Hannah filmed my speech without judging or swaying me. She acknowledged my contradictory feelings and said wanting safety without revenge was appropriate. Small conference-style courtroom hosted midday emergency custody hearing. Judge, lawyers, Natalie, Hannah, and my parents with their attorneys. Temporary custody didn't require me. I could play Natalie's phone recording. CPS was after my parents for homeschooling and conservative ideals, so my lawyer spent most of his time explaining that. He ignored my parents' abuse and talked about religious freedom and parental rights. He said the airport incident was a misunderstanding. We took medication voluntarily, and my parents monitored us. He said the scheduled operations in Mexico were cosmetic options like braces or acne treatment that many families chose. I felt strange listening to him distort things, like he was conveying another reality. The judge let the lawyer finish before assessing the evidence. He viewed photos of our binding scars, chemical burns, and injection marks. He described rib removal and voice cord manipulation in surgery communications. Olivia testified about the medical risks we faced and how some planned operations may have caused irreversible harm or death. His final words were loud and direct. He removed us from our parents, limited their visits to certified facilities, and scheduled a 4-week hearing. In my hospital bed, the recording helped me breathe. Despite my parents drugging us and trying to physically modify our bodies without our consent, I felt guilty for being relieved and a poor daughter. Natalie arrived in my room fatigued but determined after the hearing. Sitting down, she described placement honestly. 3 of us were fostered, not 4. She asked if one of us would go to a different foster family so the other 3 could be together, which was best. I volunteered fast. Unplanned words. I was oldest. This happened when I was discovered feigning sleep, instead of staying unconscious like my sisters. Should sacrifice. Natalie looked at me before asking whether I was sure or just instinctive. I said I was sure even though I wasn't because I had to choose. That night, Natalie took me to a foster home 25 minutes away in a beautiful neighborhood with unusual homes. A 60 seconds couple greets me, but I'm too sleepy to recall their names. They show me to a modest second-floor bedroom with pastel blue walls and a garden window. She opens the wardrobe and gives me 3 jammies for tonight. I linger over them since I've never chosen. Last, the central one with little flowers. I notice the door lock only works from inside when she grins and leaves me to change. No one can confine me. The house is quiet when I sit on the bed after changing. The downstairs clock ticks. Without my sisters breathing close, silence feels huge and odd. Like something vital is missing. I feel lighter and can breathe deeper without matching them. First time in years, I lie down, pull up the blanket, and fall asleep without hearing Mom's quarter or footsteps or checking for my sisters. Natalie takes me to my first downtown Thomas Donovan therapy appointment the next morning. He's about 40, speaks calmly, and doesn't shake my hand when I arrive. Instead, he sits across from me in a beautiful chair. He says we'll set small, manageable goals. Getting through the day and finding myself. He doesn't promise healing or improvement. Just says we'll survive. That sounds more genuine than phony hope, so I nod. I tell him my feelings are unknown. Too much mess to clean. We'll work on it since he agrees. Recognizing feelings. Later in the session, Natalie joins us to discuss school re-entry options, including if I should homeschool, return to traditional school, or take online courses. My dream was to play soccer, but Iris hated sports and we all had to. Thomas writes this in his notepad and says we can look at it, but court dates and foster care changes are unstable. Though grieved, I like his argument. The chaos is too vast to add. Hannah comes to the foster home a few days later and asks me to keep a diary of my memories, not my sister's. She wants me to record our identity concealing. Record my private times. That night, I sit with the blank notepad and try to recall my memories, but my sisters had us do everything together, so everything is garbled. When was the last time I pondered or did something alone? This is recorded and shown to Hannah when she visits. She says struggle indicates parents hurt us. They damaged our identities so much that I can't remember. Natalie calls a week after I start the journal with Mexican clinic news. She claims the clinic closed or moved and the unlicensed doctor stopped leading. When she says this, my stomach twists because it implies he's still hurting other kids, even if it's not my fault. Later, Bridget tells me I'm 17 and can't stop international medical criminals, but guilt stays. Because we missed him, more girls may end up on that operating table. I get a message request from an unusual account while browsing social media on my phone a week after custody court. Blank profile image, random username. I read, "We can still fix you. We can still make you perfect. We love you." My hands shake so violently I almost drop the phone, so I know it's from my parents violating the no contact order. I capture and send Natalie the message immediately as instructed. I delete the message request after disabling the account. Natalie tells me she's sending it to Williams and the prosecutor within an hour. Natalie calls again 3 days later to report Williams found Dad's work computer's fake social media account using the IP address. He sued for contempt because my parents disobeyed the no contact rule. Natalie adds, "This proves I was right to report it and that consequences are happening," which helps calm the panic that flared up when I first saw their message. The next week, I had my first supervised contact with my sisters at a neutral visitation center with meeting rooms and cameras. When we're together, we quarrel over blame and what could have been done better. Iris says I should have kept silent so we could be together, but I say we're drugged and heading to surgery. Harlow screams for normalcy. Beatrice shouts no normal, no return. Our supervisor sits quietly and lets us work. Finally, we cry, hug, and admit we're scared and mourning but safer. Long-term attachment. I realize this is our first interaction in weeks. We made our first close call without matching. Several days later, Natalie takes Beatrice to an orthopedic doctor for back examinations and x-rays. The doctor believes forced slouching damaged her spine and required physical rehabilitation and possibly lifetime pain. After, Beatrice sits in the car, depressed and angry. I'm not sure how to explain that some of our parents' behaviors are irreparable. I can't explain why they did this to her and why she couldn't be tall. Next week, Harlow sees an ENT for throat and voice tests. He believes she'll require months of vocal rest and therapy for vocal nodules from forced voice training, and her voice may never be the same. Harlow sobs in the exam room because she was a superb violinist and vocalist, and her voice may be destroyed. I hold her hand while she grieves, thinking about how our parents stole so much we'll never get back. Natalie calls 2 days after Harlow's ENT consultation to tell Iris has another foster home issue and is being admitted to a mental program. Natalie says I can write but not visit her yet. I write Iris daily about weather, breakfast, and TV. I tell her about the foster family's cat on my lap when I do homework, and the neighbor's dog barking at squirrels every morning. I write about simple things to show her a normal world awaits her when she returns. Never discuss mom or dad, procedures, or anything terrible. I tell her commonplace things that indicate life is secure and simple. A week later, Natalie visits my foster home and sits at the kitchen table with me to explain that the prosecutor has charged me and our parents with child neglect and endangerment. So she shows me document with official legal jargon claiming the judicial process will take months or years. I'm relieved something's happening, fatigued because it's not over, and guilty because they're still my parents despite damaging us. Natalie wants to see my face, so I inform Thomas. Thomas says that's normal when I tell him about the charges and how I feel relieved, exhausted, and guilty during my next therapy appointment. Mixed thoughts about nasty people don't make you weak or confused, he argues. The topic is hard and you're human. That helps, but guilt weighs me down. Hannah visits the foster home the following week and advises me to prepare for the extended custody court, when I may testify. She asks sample questions like, "Why didn't you tell anyone sooner?" And "Why didn't you just run away?" I attempt to answer calmly, but they sound like she's blaming me, so I get furious. My voice rises as I tell her I was scared and controlled, wanted to flee, and they locked us in. Hannah nods and says, "Good. That anger is good. I need to be able to access it to protect myself on the stand." She thinks my parents' lawyer will try to make me doubt myself and get confused, so I need to practice staying calm even when upset. Repeating practice questions till I can answer them without shaking my voice. A few days later, Natalie emails me my parents' attorney's court filing. Reading that on my bed makes me mad. Homeschooling and religious freedom protect their parenting choices, says their lawyer. He wants us to view their actions as family, spiritual, and educational decisions. The motion seems to justify chest binding and forced sedation for parental authority, traditional values, and family autonomy. I've read it 3 times and each time I feel further from reality since it describes a different cosmos. Like they twisted all the facts into nonsense. I show the document to my foster mom and ask if I'm crazy or remembering wrong. She hugs me and says, "No, I'm not crazy. Powerful people spin horrific things." My room sorts donation bag shirts and jeans on weekends. At the bottom of the packet, an outdated photo was mistakenly mixed in. My hands shake when I pull it out since it's from before the matching, when I was 5 or 6. The photo shows 4 little girls as separate people. Curly, straight, taller, shorter. They're dressed and smiling differently. I look at my younger self in the photo and try to remember who she was, what she loved, and what distinguished her unique from her sisters. Yearly repetition has damaged memories, making them hard to find. The photo hurts to look at, so I store it in my nightstand drawer. 4 weeks later, the extended custody hearing begins on a cold February morning. Hannah wakes me up and drives me to court. She encourages me to talk carefully and look at the judge, not my parents. The courtroom is smaller than imagined due to wood paneling and soft fluorescent lights. My mother cries when I enter while my parents sit with their lawyer at a table. I concentrate on the judge's desk. I promise to tell the truth with my hand on the Bible when the bailiff calls me to testify. My voice shakes, but Hannah was correct. Progress stabilizes. I tell the judge about the surveillance cameras in every room, including the bathroom, the chest binding that knocked out Iris, and the forced sedation the night before the airport. I talk about the surgery, Mexican clinic, and $25,000 my parents paid up front. Looking at the judge instead than my parents helps me talk when my throat tightens. My parents' lawyer cross-examines me after testifying. An older man in a gray suit grins at me politely but cruelly. He says I terrified my sisters, or planned the surgery to get attention because I was jealous of their closeness. It sounds like he's asking legitimate questions. When I get angry, I recall Hannah's advice. I face him and explain. I told him Tijuana's clinic was Centro Demotific. I tell him $25,000 was wired on a date. I explain bone shaving, rib removal, and voice cord change. He changes expression when he discovers I have more details than expected. He asks additional questions, but I answer with facts and dates and he sits. Olivia Bennett testifies as an expert after a break. She reports medical data with a clinical tone and professional attire. Iris's chest binding injuries, hair color chemical burns on all our scalps, and forced sedative injection markings on our necks are described. She outlines our significant health issues in medical language and shows photos. Her scientific evidence makes type parenting and cultural differences harder to blame. No drama or emotion for her. She delivers evidence like a doctor. Williams follows with a chronological airport intervention testimony. His concerns include the airline agent's suspicions, injection marks, and us being unconscious on the luggage cart. He discovered locks, cameras, and logs throughout our home. The evidence relates everything. He shows. His evidence shows how many systems missed this earlier. How many people saw us but didn't inquire why 4 teenage girls looked alike. He recounts how close we were to traveling to Mexico and what would have happened if the airline agent hadn't noticed. The judge briefly evaluates evidence after testimony. My parents are talking to their lawyer through the hallway door as we wait. High-pitched anger from Mom. After returning inside, the judge appears fatigued. He briefly reviews his evidence, legal, and duty notes. Choice announced. This ruling extends our parental custody removal by a year. He wants parental psychiatric tests before reassessing custody. He restricts them to approved facilities with trained monitors for monitored contact. I almost cried from relief. Though relieved, I feel peculiar anguish because they hurt us, but they're my parents. Part of me wanted them to fight for us differently, own faults, and change, but they sit angry and betrayed, like we hurt them. Natalie smiles across the room as Hannah squeezes my shoulder. The judge strikes his gavel and says, "Court is adjourned." My hands shake when Natalie calls 3 weeks later with news. Her foster family took 4 of us. That 50 seconds couple has enough beds for everyone and fostered siblings. On Saturday mornings, the foster mom escorts us to our rooms, which feels strange and improper, but then I hear Iris's voice through the wall, Harlow's footsteps upstairs, and Beatrice humming in the toilet. And everything settles down. We sleep on the living room floor that night since moving about is too quick. Foster parents don't lock us up. They bring additional blankets and say, "We'll figure it out at our own pace." Thomas visits the house twice a week for boundary practice group sessions. Before pausing, we all take the same box of crackers from the pantry. Thomas has us choose something else, and I spend 10 minutes deciding between chips and cookies because I keep looking at my sister's choices. We vary TV programming, table chairs, and shower times. Choosing differently from them tightens my chest, which sounds ridiculous. Harlow selects grape juice, I orange, Iris water, and Beatrice lemonade. Look at our beverages like we've done something dangerous. Our foster dad called it the boldest thing in years. I attend Tuesday and Thursday soccer clinics in our neighborhood park. First night, I wear borrowed cleats that don't fit and my own shorts that don't match. I tumble over and kick the ball wrong in coach-led drills. My chest knots when I race down the field, pursuing it with no one matching my pace. Slowness, clumsiness, and burning lungs are mine. I alone learned this horrible thing. After practice, I text my sisters about my awful performance. Getting laughing emojis back is great too. Being able to fail without hurting others. First time in months, Harlow brings her violin to the visiting center's Wednesday afternoon music. Her hands shake when she draws the bow, and her first notes are off-key. She plays a basic melody because her hoarse voice inhibits singing. After finishing, the supervisor claps and says it's therapeutic. Not great, but improving. Harlow's eyes swell, but she smiles, unlike in years. Next week, we have our first monitored visit with our parents in a small room with cameras and a corner monitor. Mom cries after seeing us, and Dad's voice breaks when he shouts our names. They want pardon and wish to love and appreciate us. I refuse Mom's hand since Thomas taught us boundaries. We can't talk about forgiveness until they take responsibility. The surgeries would have permanently ruined us, says Iris. Her spine hurts every morning, says Beatrice. Harlow rubs her throat, where she spoke loudly. The look on our parents' faces implies they didn't expect us to speak. Our time is up. The monitor interrupts Dad's argument. I feel guilty, relieved, and sad leaving. Natalie calls about the Mexican clinic 3 days later. An probe is ongoing after authorities submitted the information in a federal database, perhaps safeguarding other families from what almost happened to us. I let go my worries about other girls being operated on and sisters being separated to match. It doesn't fix what happened, but it suggests we could have stopped it. 5 months after the airport intervention, we eat tacos we made separately at the foster family's dinner table. Beatrice explores extreme haircuts, possibly side buzzes. Harlow wants hers past her shoulders for the first time since childhood. Iris wants to try crimson or purple, something different from us. We joke because we're consciously choosing different looks to recover our faces. On Saturday, the foster mom takes us to the salon, where we spend an hour browsing her phone for haircuts and choosing our own. On cold November mornings, final custody hearings are placed. Natalie, Thomas, and our doctors present the judge updated reports after reviewing all the evidence. He grants the state permanent foster family guardianship. We must have individual education plans, medical treatment, and rehabilitation. He forbids our parents from altering our bodies or making medical judgments. There's no happy ending with everything fixed. Safety with legal protection trumps perfection. 6 months after everything happened, I buy pads alone at the drugstore. I don't steal or buy them for others. As usual, the cashier rings them up. I text my sisters a ridiculous period cramp meme on my way home, and they react differently. That afternoon in Thomas's office, I admit the road ahead is long and hard. He hears my airport van, waking up dreams. I sometimes pick what my sisters do without thinking. I will never force us into identical bodies again. 4 distinct people are coming to love each other. It's harder, better, and more real.